Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Bunny Cakes and welcome to my channel for the first time if you're new here. Today I am going to be doing an ebook haul because I've gotten some pretty good deals on ebooks lately, and I've been buying a lot of books just in general during quarantine, just to keep myself busy. My TBR is currently pretty much exploding. Um, So the first book that I'm going to talk about today is Don't Make a Sound by T.R. Reagan. Um, Here's the cover here on my Kindle there. Um, so this book is written about a crime reporter named Sawyer Brooks. She is, she's going through a lot of rage and paranoia and trying to get her life together, and she gets a promotion at her job, and it causes her to return back to her hometown and face her past to write the story, and she ends up having to reconcile with her sisters and that sort of thing. And it just seemed really interesting to me. It's a thriller, and I think it was a Kindle First Reads that I got for free this month, or this past month. Um, the next book that I have on my list is Furious Hours, Murder, Fraud, and the Last Trial of Harper Lee. So this is a book I had never heard of before. Um, in this book, the author Casey Sepp masterfully brings together tales of a serial killer in the 1970s, from Alabama, and Harper Lee, the beloved author of To Kill a Mockingbird, who tried to write his story. Reverend Willie Maxwell was a rural preacher accused of murdering 5 of his family members, but with the help of a savvy lawyer, he escaped justice for years until a relative assassinated him at the funeral of his last victim. Despite hundreds of witnesses, Maxwell's murderer was acquitted, thanks to the same attorney who had previously defended the Reverend himself. Sitting in the audience during the vigilante's trial was Harper Lee, who spent a year in town reporting on Maxwell and many more trying to finish the book she called The Reverend. Sepp brings this remarkable story to life, from the horrifying murders to the courtroom drama to the racial politics of the Deep South, while offering a deeply moving portrait of one of our most revered writers. This one seemed really interesting to me. I love To Kill a Mockingbird and Harper Lee's works, and I had no idea she had anything to do with true crime, or true crime writing. So I'm totally interested in this case, and I'm totally interested in reading this book. In just a second here, I will show you the cover of that one. It's kind of woodsy and focuses on the title and everything. And then the next book I have is My Dark Vanessa by Kate Elizabeth Russell. This is a book about a woman who, she had an inappropriate relationship with a teacher. And in 2017, he gets accused, amidst all of the Me Too movement and that sort of thing. This is fiction, I believe, but it still talks about the Me Too movement and that sort of thing. And her whole life, she thought of him as her first love, and he taught her what relationships were supposed to be and that sort of thing. And it explores that juxtaposition. Was she a victim, or was she a willing participant in this relationship? Was he grooming her, or did she choose the relationship? And a couple of people I've seen in the Discord servers that I participate in have read this and have been talking about it, and I avoided spoilers, but they totally got me interested in it. And here is the cover. So yeah, this one seems really, really interesting. And especially because it raises those vital questions about agency and complicity and consent and victimhood and all of that. Um, it's definitely something I want to look into and explore, both as a woman and a reader. And I was never in specifically that type of position, but I find that many women have been in a type of position like that, where we wouldn't necessarily consider ourselves victims, even though we kind of were in some cases. Um, so moving forward, the next one I have is Daughters of the Lake by Wendy Webb. This one is horror thriller esque. So this one, there's a woman named Kate Granger who goes back to her parents' home on Lake Superior to get herself back together after the end of her marriage. Um, and as she's there, she discovers a body of a murdered woman in the shallows of the lake. And the body of the woman also happens to be hiding the body of an infant. And she recognizes her, and it's the whole story is related to a story from 100 years ago. And so it's kind of, it reaches back into history and present, and it's a murder mystery kind of thing. And it totally had me intrigued, and I think the cover looks really awesome with the woman's body in the water. Um, and yes, so I'm looking forward to that one. And I have a lot of books, so I'm kind of trying to breeze through these a little bit quickly so I don't end up with an hour-long video. The next book I have was a book that I did not realize had a sequel yet because apparently I wasn't paying attention. It's a sequel to the movie, or to the book The Hazelwood. It's called The Night Country by Melissa Albert. And so this one takes place, of course, after that. And Alice is, she's kind of trying to move on with her life, but she's noticing that, that a lot of the creatures from the hinterland that have come out into the regular world are dying. And it also talks about how Finch is trying to come into his own and live his own life between hinterland and the real world as well. I really enjoyed The Hazelwood. I read it a few years ago. I didn't know The Night Country was actually out at all, or that there was a sequel. I just happened on it by chance while I was scrolling through the Amazon bookstore recently, and because I liked the original so much, I just had to grab a hold of this one too and put it on my ever-growing TBR. So moving on, the next one I have is, it was suggested to me as true crime, and it kind of is, but it kind of isn't. It's kind of a Renaissance book. It is called Stay Sexy and Don't Get Murdered by Karen Kilgariff and Georgia Hardstark. They are the creators of the hit podcast My Favorite Murder. I actually listen to these girls on Spotify all of the time. So they talk about themselves, they talk about true crime, they talk about their experiences, and they even talk about self-advocating and valuing your personal safety over being nice and helpful. So it's kind of true crime, it's kind of autobiography, memoir, self-improvement, all sorts of stuff. And I actually first came across this, I was looking for true crime stickers. I found one that was shown on Reddit one day, and I went and got the sticker, and I was looking for other true crime stickers because I love to cover my laptop and notebooks and everything with stickers. And so what happened was I came across this this set, or this book rather, because of that. And I didn't know they had stickers, and I don't think they're made by the girls who do the podcast. I think they're fan stickers because they were over on Etsy. But I enjoy the podcast, so I'm hoping I'll enjoy this book as well. And then the next book I have, the next two books I have actually, are more serious and hard hitting. Um, the first one I have is, and actually, before I say that, let me preface this by why I picked these books. We all know that there are protests and riots due to the murder of George Floyd, and there have been several many more murders during the riots of black people and other people of color who were doing nothing wrong, or at least nothing that deserved their deaths. Um, and as part of that, um, in order to be a better ally, we need to educate ourselves. And this has been discussed on Twitter, on BookTube, and everything. And I came across a tweet that was retweeting the announcement video for the Blackout Buddy Read, which was created by Books by Shay, who is a very awesome booktuber that I wasn't following before, but I'm totally following now. I've binge watched like most of her videos recently, or maybe not most of them, but a significant number of them. She is a black creator on YouTube, and she's a teacher, and in order to help non-black allies educate themselves, she handpicked these two books that she felt would help us understand and better ourselves as allies to the black community. And the first one, she picked one. I keep stepping over myself. She picked one that was written by a black author and one that was written by a white author. And she said that she did this because from the white author, because a lot of who she's aiming this video at is white people, people tend to hear things better from somebody who is like them. So she picked a white author. And then it's also important to hear the message from somebody from the community that you're trying to ally with and you're trying to help. And so she picked one by a white author, and they're on similar subject matter. The first one that I bought was White Fragility: Why It's So Hard for White People to Talk About Racism by Robin DiAngelo. Um, and this, I'm going to read the synopsis for these ones. In this vital, necessary, and beautiful book, my anti-racist educator Robin DiAngelo deftly illuminates the phenomenon of white fragility and allows us to understand racism as a practice not restricted to bad people. Referring to the defensive moves that white people make when challenged racially, white fragility is characterized by emotions such as anger, fear, and guilt, and by behaviors including argumentation and silence. These behaviors in turn function to reinstate white racial equilibrium and prevent any meaningful cross-racial dialogue. It is an in-depth exploration. DiAngelo examines how white fragility develops and how it protects racial inequality and what we can do to engage more constructively. And I can't remember if I showed the cover, so here it is. And the foreword is by Michael Eric Dyson. I feel like we can never be educated enough on these situations, especially because it's not like this is something I've ever had to deal with as a person. While I do have hardships in life, literally none of them have been based on the color of my skin. I mean, with the exception of the fact that I can't go outside in the daytime because I sunburn, but that's a completely different matter. I don't have to worry about getting arrested or shot because I get pulled over at the wrong time. Nobody's going to stop me if I'm driving in the wrong neighborhood, or if I appear to be driving a car that it doesn't look like I should be able to afford because of the color of my skin. Because, of course, the color of your skin is equitable to the amount of money in your bank account. Um, and in racist minds, a lot of the time it is. The next book that I bought for this buddy read, before I ramble on too much about that, is White Rage, which is by Carol Anderson. It's the unspoken truth of our racial divide. And here's the cover for that one. So let me read the synopsis of that one really quick. As Ferguson, Missouri erupted in August 2014, and media commentators across the ideological spectrum referred to the angry response of African Americans as Black Rage, historian Carol Anderson wrote a remarkable op-ed in the Washington Post suggested that this was instead white rage at work. With so much attention on the flame, she argued, everyone had ignored the kindling. Since 1865 and the passage of the 13th Amendment, every time American or African Americans have made advances towards full participation in our democracy, white reaction has fueled a deliberate and relentless rollback of their gains. The end of the Civil War and the Reconstruction was greeted with the Black Codes and Jim Crow. The Supreme Court's landmark 1954 Brown v. Board of Education decision was met with the shutting down of public schools throughout the South while taxpayer dollars financed segregated white private schools. The Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965 triggered a coded but powerful response. The so-called Southern Strategy and the war on drugs that disenfranchised millions of African Americans while propelling Presidents Nixon and Reagan into the White House, and then the election of America's first black president, led to the expression of white rage that has been as relentless as it has been brutal. Carefully linking these and other historical flashpoints when social progress for African Americans was countered by deliberate and cleverly crafted opposition, Anderson pulls back the veil that has long covered the actions made in the name of protecting democracy. Fiscal responsibility, or protection against fraud, rendering visible the long lineage of white rage, compelling and dramatic in the unimpeachable history of it relates. White rage will add an important new dimension to the national conversation about race in America, and I think this is an equally important book to read. These books handle very similar topics, but they handle them differently because of the point of view of the author. One's written by a white woman and one is written by a black woman. And so we're going to get both of those experiences in reading this. To the point, I feel that these are so important that I am going to be setting aside the entire rest of my TBR until I read these. I'm not even going to wait for the actual buddy read time period to start, though I will give you information on that since you're watching my video. It's set to start literally tomorrow after I post this, so June 5th to June 19th. And the reason she's having it end on June 19th is because that is what is popularly known as Juneteenth in the black community. And so yeah, I will link Shay's video down below, and I will also grab the Twitter link and the links that she has to these books on her video so that they're easily accessible for mine as well. Definitely check this out. Educate yourself. Be a better ally. And just try to be the best person you can be. Our black friends and relatives, they matter, but even the lives of black people who aren't connected to you at all matter. People shouldn't be dying strictly for the color of their skin. And the brutality that we've seen in the last week is appalling, on top of the brutality that we've been seeing for years. The list of people who have been murdered in the last several years is appalling. And I do mean murdered because these people are being killed for things that do not involve death sentences, even when these people are committing crimes. And some of them weren't committing crimes at all. Some of them were murdered in their beds, and they were actual police officers, so they weren't committing crimes. Um, it's just appalling, and we as a society can do better. It seems, sadly, that we as a society are reverting. So, as white people, we need to stand up with our black brothers and sisters and friends and community members and neighbors. Don't stand up for them. They're strong. They can take care of themselves, but stand with them in solidarity, because that's what they're asking for. At least that's what it seems to me that they're asking for. They want to be equal members in our society in all ways. And it's just, it really should have been better by now. We're supposed to be in the future, which means everything's supposed to be better. And it's not, because we haven't worked hard enough. So it's time to do that. And remember, election times are coming. If they haven't passed for you, they will be coming up soon. Use your voice. Stand up that way. Stand up in any way you can. And if you can't stand up any other way, you can donate. You can use your voice on social media, your platform, whatever it is. And also, there is a YouTube video that I will link down below that has a significant number of ads in it. All of the proceeds in this video are being donated to the different causes that are helping people during the protests right now, for bail money and lawyers and whatever they need to get taken care of right now. So I will link that below. Watch it, turn off your ad blocker, and watch that video at least once. Every little bit helps. It's a good cause, and it's something that you can do from the safety of your own home without anybody knowing if you don't want them to. And you can contribute to the cause in that way if you're not comfortable contributing in any other way. Again, I'll link all this information down below. Thank you for watching, and I do hope you have a better rest of your day. Bye-bye.